back. We're going over the escalation of political violence from Londonderry in Ireland and in Scotland. So first, from the 24th of May, from BBC News, Londonderry alert, petrol bombs thrown at police officers. Police in Londonderry are continuing to question a 12-year-old boy and two 16-year-olds after officers were attacked with petrol bombs during a security alert. This is within the idea of people being indoctrinated into their beliefs at a very young age, thinking that violence is the right answer, because when you suggest that people cannot be reasoned with and they mean evil, then violence is the only answer. And this comes back to a wider point, in my view at least, of what incitement to violence actually means, because personally, as far as I'm concerned, incitement to violence is not meant to be go kill that person. I know that it is that in today's day and age, but I don't think that that is what it is, at least originally, intended to mean with the First Amendment in America, for example, banning that. In my opinion, the ideal way, and therefore how I think it was originally intended, is that incitement to violence is that if what you're saying were to actually be true, the person who is responsible then for carrying out the violence would not be prosecuted by the law. For example, if you were to say, like, maybe you have two broken legs, you're in a hospital chair, and then somebody's coming in with a knife, or maybe in a hospital, so it's a scalpel, whatever it is, and there's somebody visiting you, and you were to see that the person with the knife, or the weapon, then you would say to the person with you, hey, there's a person behind you who's going to attack you, like, use your chair to hit them in the face, and they do so because they believe you, then they wouldn't be prosecuted, because that's self-defense, that's fair enough, where a preemptive strike is necessary, otherwise they would suffer harm, and that kind of thing is fair enough. Of course, if you were to be lying and the person were to just come in with a clipboard and it's a pen and they're just writing it down and you're just schizophrenic and the person were to react to that, then yeah, you could be prosecuted for what you were saying, although in that case, of course, then it could be, well, you're insane, and therefore it would be more to take you away from contact with other people with an idea of rehabilitation, because you don't have your own sense of agency because you're not mentally sound. But that's the kind of thing that if you were to lie about somebody, in a case where if you were to be telling the truth, violence is the only answer, then it is incitement to violence, even if you're not telling people exactly to commit an act of violence, which I think would still be incitement to violence if you were to say this person is unhinged, and if they commit, maybe you're saying that they are a terrorist, and if they are to come into a place where there are several people, they are going to commit an act of violence. We have this as full knowledge that they intend to make this area a target, and if you see them, then bear in mind that their only intent is to cause harm. They have gone too far to be reasoned with, and they are just trying to hurt people. Then it's understandable that people would be violent towards them, because they think, well, hey, if I don't get to them first, then they will get to me. So in that case, that I understand that would then be an incitement to violence, because if that were to be true, and I obviously like using the example of the train in France, where the US Army guys, there were three of them, took down a would-be terrorist who had I believe it was an automatic rifle, a handgun, and a knife. They took him down before he killed anybody. Obviously one of them was injured in the process, hitting his ear and severing his thumb, or at least cutting it deeply into his hand with the knife. But that kind of thing, even though the would-be terrorist didn't actually hurt anybody, that would be an incitement to violence from one of the guys waking up another guy to say, hey, let's go deal with that guy. That is an incitement to violence. Are they prosecuted? No. Should they be prosecuted? No. And is it because they were telling the truth? Yes. In which case, that makes sense. But context matters a great deal, obviously. That you could still say, that those people should be hurt, but you're saying it as a joke, in which case, fair enough. And it's a similar thing, obviously, with destroying somebody's reputation in saying that they are a sexual predator, or, especially in the Me Too era, a violent sex abuser, that kind of thing, that false accusation can then ruin someone's life and even have them on the receiving end of physical hostility, not just verbal hostility. So that kind of thing is also incitement to violence, arguably. But that's my view of it anyway, that it isn't cut and dry of, it's fine as long as you don't say these people should be killed, but if you're putting them in a group in which it is accepted that these people should be dealt with in a physical way because they can't be reasoned with, then it's to be expected that people would take a physical response to them. And we have an example here and in the next story as well. And as you've seen, which is particularly worrying, when dialogue is trying to be shut down and, deplatforming and that kind of thing of saying these people cannot be reasoned with, you've got to stop them as soon as you see them, then that only encourages political violence or violence in the name of pushing a political ideology or silencing another, which is the definition of terrorism. So it does encourage terrorism by saying these people are evil and they cannot be reasoned with, because if you're saying words don't work but they have to be stopped, then all that's left is violence. So let's get on with this story so you see what I mean. So they got one 12-year-old boy and two 16-year-olds. 5 petrol bombs were thrown after a suspicious device was found in a polling station in the Gallia area. The device close to St. Paul's Primary School was later declared an elaborate hoax. It was by the primary school just because that was where the polling station was. And this was, apparently, according to Gordon McCalmont, an orchestrated disorder had one aim in mind: to attack police. So again, this is attacking the state, and this goes back to the troubles, of course, in Northern Ireland, which was before my living memory anyway. But they do say the security alert is the second this month in this area, impacting the same community that was disrupted on May 2nd during local council elections. So again, I think we see the army bomb experts carrying controlled explosion. I do like the army. Obviously I'm joining the reserve, so that says it all. But it is one of those things where if you are disrupting the democracy of a country to push your own political ideology, that is an expression of fascism, as ironic as people may find that, but it is understandable. And I think in these situations it's important to ask, well, okay, obviously I think I'm doing the right thing, and I think they are the bad guys, but, let's try and view it objectively, or put me in a bad light. Is what I'm doing something that a good guy would do, or a bad guy would do? So let's say that they are stopping the election of people who wish to eliminate a certain race of people, sure, or whatever it is, if that's what they view it, so be it. Is what I'm doing of stopping the democratic election and intervening and being violent, even though that isn't a guarantee, is that what a good guy would do, intervening in the democratic elections by instilling fear into people, by being violent towards them, even if it is just throwing milkshake at them? Is that what a good guy would do, or a bad guy would do? Doesn't matter which party you affiliate to. Is that good guy action or bad guy action? Again, I would say bad guy action. And it's interesting because I had this conversation earlier with someone else when I was out, because I work at a pub and we have very interesting conversations there. Of course, when someone was talking about, they picked an extreme hypothetical to say, well, if somebody were to stand on a platform of, hey, we should kill all babies, and they had like 10,000 followers, what would you do with that person? I said, well, I would give them a very public platform, as public as possible, encourage them to speak, give them a long-form conversation, understand where they're coming from, to which, of course, their eyes widened and went, what the hell? And then going on further to say, well, you got to see where their motivations are, that maybe they were molested as a child, in which case they don't think anybody should go through that, and it just comes down to explaining, well, very few people go through that, and if we were to put more funding into dealing with paedophiles and preventing that, would that work? So to say, yeah, it would. Then, of course, that would stop the movement in its tracks, and the people who are following the movement may not be thinking through their own actions, but just hear this idea, however that person frames it, think, oh, that's a good idea. And, of course, they are drawn to whatever their leader says, so they will watch all their information and public appearances, and then they would see that long-form interview and go, oh, no, I don't support that at all. Probably for the majority, maybe not for a few hundred more, but that's to be expected, and the disruption caused by them is going to be really minimal because they're not going to be receiving the public praise they receive. And the same comes down to addiction, as mentioned by Johan Hari. I know it's a tangent, but bear with me. That people go to things like drugs and alcohol, even though alcohol is a drug, whatever, because they don't have meaning in their life, and therefore they're doing it to try and find something to fill the void of accomplishment. So if you have somebody who's addicted to a substance in your social circle or family, don't ostracize them. That's only going to encourage it, because they're going to feel even worse and be drawn to that substance even more, because that's reliable, but people are not. But if you understand why they're drawn to that sort of behaviour and give them something to aspire to, then they won't want to lose touch with reality, because they'll have something more important to work towards. This has also been shown, of course, by Skinner with rats, that addicted to cocaine, they will stay on the cocaine, obviously, but only if they're isolated. If they go back to their other rat friends and have rat fun, which is mainly sex, but yeah, rat fun, then they will no longer want the cocaine, because they have a more fulfilled life, at least as far as rats are concerned. But yes, this story then goes on to say there were young people, children parking up and going into the shop. Someone could have very easily been hurt last night. Just to say that it was near a polling station, and the people who were attacking the police and trying to interfere with the elections didn't care about the other people that could have been caught in the crossfire. And the nice thing about it is voting continued at the polling station during the alert. And I think that kind of thing is the most important. That obviously the police are fantastic in getting to the scene of a crime, and inspectors, detectives are great at sorting things out after the fact, but they do have some sort of response time, and you need people to react in those first few seconds that something is happening. And if you can build up your reputation as a society that, hey, we don't let that kind of thing go unchallenged, and if you try something stupid, you're going to be tackled, destroyed, and you are going to fail overall, then it is not going to happen anymore. And I know I've mentioned this before with the decreased gun regulations in Brazil being highly publicised, and I believe in Florida with women being trained for firearms, that rape decreased like 82%, I believe, and I can't remember another southern city or council in America where it showed that the vast majority of homeowners had guns ready, that hot burglaries decreased substantially as well, that it's just publicising it to show that these kinds of people will not accept your stupid behaviour, then you're going to be less likely to do it. So that kind of thing is amazing, to basically say, hey, we don't care what you do, you're not going to affect us. Your idea of terrorism, which is to instill terror, isn't effective. And ideally, you're going to be dealt with immediately. That, as far as I'm concerned, is the idea we're dealing with it, because it's saying that your chosen outcome is not going to happen. So the other story we have, which is the escalation of political violence from the Scottish Herald Scotland, 20th of May, is councillors' terror after petrol bomb attack at home. And here we have Graham Campbell's wife's car was destroyed by the blaze. They attacked their car and their home. A Scottish Tory councillor, funny that, whose car and house were petrol bombed, believes he and his family were targeted because of his involvement with a local planning case. Councillor Graham Campbell, who represents Avondale and Stonehouse and Strathern, the attack occurred at early hours of Monday, which is, of course, saying that it's early hours, so you might say, well, it's night time, but also the people are most likely to be there. So if you want to destroy property, then you can still do it at a time when they're out, to send a message to say that, hey, you have no home here, but if you do it when they're going to be there and unconscious, then it is to say that you don't deserve to exist, which is fundamentally different. Your family were alerted to the fire by a passing teenager who knocked on the door around 1:15 a.m. after an explosion set Mrs. Campbell's car on fire. Good old teenagers. Some teenagers who go out and party or get rowdy, whatever it is, who are up late at night, still have the mental fortitude to say, hey, is your car supposed to be on fire? I like it. So there's good in youths as well, okay? Just because the previous story was young people making the fire, here we have young people saving people from the fire. Mr. Campbell said, it's shocking someone tried to murder us. Said another 15 minutes we would have been dead if we hadn't got the fire brigade, who were incredible. And I think that maybe you don't think they're the unsung heroes because they're mentioned enough, but they're amazing. The emergency services in the UK, I know it takes long going in rural areas, but still, you guys are amazing. First responders, emergency services, thank you very much. I know I sound like chocolate wedding, but still, thank you. And Graham Campbell told the BBC, I've got an idea that it's linked to a case I've been involved in as a local councillor, a planning case for the last 18 months. Clearly they're trying to give me a message to shut up and take this no further. Basically, we're glad to be alive. The incident is being treated as willful and inquiries are ongoing. And the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service spokeswoman says that they left the scene at 3:15 a.m, so 2 hours after it had begun. But it all seemed to be dealt with, so that's good. We haven't got an update on who was responsible, what their motives were, only what the victim thought was the reason. But still, as Tim Pool has pointed out, that in riots, it seems that the first thing is a water bottle, and then it's eggs, if they have any, but then it's bricks and stones and rocks, and then it escalates even further to petrol bombs because they're readily available. Sure, you can outlaw firearms in the UK if people are still going to get them illegally if they wish to commit a crime, and I've been over this before about if you're trying to defend yourself, you might be caught on the 1,000th time you've taken your gun out, and you'll be prosecuted for it. But if you're just going out to try and kill someone, you only need to take it out once. So you have a tiny chance of being caught with it, because you only need it once, instead of taking it out until you're caught with it, which is then inevitable. But petrol bombs are easy, because we still have petrol. So that's very simple. And of course after that we say, oh, we're going to go over to batteries. It's like, okay, great, in which case you're going to need high capacity batteries, which means they're going to be more flammable. I mean, if you ever just stuck a knife into a lithium polymer battery, because they're used for model aircraft, for example, or model cars, then you know how flammable they are as well, and they're easy to start fires. So yes, electricals, especially high capacity batteries, are very flammable as well. Or you might say, oh, we're going to go into hydrogen instead, isn't that nice? Although I know that's died down in recent years. That's also very flammable. Obviously, the Hindenburg is a good example of that. But these attacks are escalating. Tim Pool says we're heading to a civil war. Sticks and Hammer says we're not. But if you believe in the cycling of the 20-year cycles of hard times creating strong men, creating easy times, creating easy men or soft men, which create hard times, then we are due the hard times again. So I hope you're strong men, strong people, because it seems like we're going to need you, and the world's going to need you. So true to the British spirit, have a stiff upper lip, power on through, and we will make it out of this alive. As the late great Winston Churchill said, if you're in hell, keep going. Thanks very much for watching, listening. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you next time with the European election results, as they are coming in from 10 PM, and we already have the Brexit Party going on ahead. So, good stuff, and I will tell you those as soon as I have them.